We're happy to welcome in Gavin Schoenwald, the Brentwood kid, the kid from Brentwood. That's what Andrew Allegretta would call him on the broadcast. I thought that was pretty cool. He did that for a couple guys on the team. So Gavin Schoenwald, of course, played at Brentwood Academy. Nashville native, and of course grew up a Vandy fan. And he's the perfect player to talk to in terms of the growth within this program with Coach Lea, but he played under Coach Mason as well. So we'll dive into a lot of that. But Gavin, thanks so much for taking the time, man.
Yeah, boys, happy to be here. I'm really excited for this.
Gavin, I want to start with something really simple, and it's life after football. And a lot of players I've talked to say it's definitely tough. It's different than what you've been going through the past 5 years of your life, especially playing in high school. So I'll go ahead and start there. How's life after football been at Vandy?
It's good. Well, for now, I'm training, for pro day and all that kind of stuff too. So I'm still technically around football and training and such. But there's such a difference between training, for pro day, towards being a professional athlete than it is your experience as a college athlete. In college, like you're this. And this is everywhere, not just Vandy. This is literally at every single school in the country. Is you're a college kid who has athletic football talent, and they just try to grind you to the stone and try to see how much they can get out of you. And what I'm doing now is so much more individual focused, speed, power, all that kind of stuff. When it's just a little bit different than when you're jumping in with 90 guys in a workout in the summer, running every step of First Bank Stadium. But no, it's good. It's I'm still in school at Owen. I'm getting my master's in marketing and doing all that right now. And so that's still always keeps me just as busy, but I definitely miss the boys. And every time I see somebody who's still a part of the program, I'm constantly asking them questions. I'm wanting to know what's going on. And I think no matter what happens, I'll always be, a huge supporter of our program.
So you had another year of eligibility, technically. So I guess what went into that decision for you? It's probably kind of crazy people sitting here realizing you did have another year of eligibility technically, but I know looking back last year was probably a tough decision too. To kind of counter what you wanted to do. So what went into that decision for you to ultimately declare for the draft and kind of hang up the cleats on West End?
Yeah, well, I think, like you said, let's go back to a year ago of this time. I guess a year ago of December, I was trying to figure out if I was going to come back for my fifth year, and you guys know just how crazy college football has gotten, and how you can just seem to say you're going to go here, and all of a sudden you have a locker at XYZ school, and it's just wild. It's crazy, and so there were some points where people reached out to me and stuff like that about trying to get me for a fifth year or of somewhere else, or exploring if somewhere else was a good option. And I think at the end of the day, man, I'm a door for life, and I at the time, and still do, but really really believe in Coach Lee's vision for the team and the program, and I love playing for my position coach, and all signs pointed to come back to Vandy for the fifth year. And so super glad I made that decision. Obviously we definitely had a building year, and definitely looking forward to visiting, Coach and the boys in the bowl game next year.
This may be a little bit more of a general question here, Gavin, and thanks for taking the time to join us here. But you experienced college football not only in kind of a tumultuous stage within the Vanderbilt program, but a lot of change in how NCAA football works and how it operates with the transfer portal, free year of eligibility once and in the graduate, and once you graduate and you pursue your graduate degree. So from a player's perspective, what has that change been like, I guess, in the locker room in the off season, and what is it like in general, just with this kind of what seems to be on the outside, kind of a free agency a little bit in college football?
Yeah, that's a great question, Will. It's wild, and I think that before, this is something that I said during my freshman and sophomore seasons, when the transfer portal and all this free agency, as you said, was not really a thing yet, is the biggest difference between like the camaraderie of high school football versus college football is in high school, you grow up with those guys, you know what's going on. And in college football, you're hanging out and going through your workouts, and all of a sudden there's some guy in the locker next to you, and you're just like, oh, I guess he's on the team now. And now that is like every day at every school in the entire country times 10, right? And so, I think it's night and day difference from what I experienced, and college football is changing. And I think that, a lot of teams formulas, to recruit high school players, develop them, turn them into this, the formula's got to change a little bit. And it's the truth it's the sad reality. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of it. I also think because of this, honestly, you're gonna see those like campus legends disappear. The Tim Tebow's, Colt McCoy, Vince Young, like those stories aren't really going to be there anymore because people are just going to be jumping from program to program, which I hate, because to me that's what college football is all about. Let the pros be pros and jump to whatever team they want. And college football, yeah, I don't know. I think Bryce Young may be the last one we see, honestly, of some guy who was, recruited somewhere, developed, and then, walks out a Heisman Trophy winner at the same school he was recruited to his senior in high school. And yeah, it's totally different. And, if you would have told me my freshman, sophomore year that it ended up like this, I would have told you were crazy. So who knows what it's even going to look like 5 years from now.
Yeah, Gavin. Hey, just want to reiterate again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're all huge fans of you and the program in general. Sort of piggybacking off what Will said, you kind of mentioned it a little bit in regards to how you grow in friendship with one another through going to workouts, classes together, obviously games. In sports, football, the locker room is talked about all the time, locker room camaraderie. In baseball, you have the clubhouse, and there's sort of these mystiques around like a clubhouse and a locker room.
Sure.
With baseball in the NFL, we get an interesting perspective because media is allowed in these spaces. Granted, not all the time, but after games, during practices, throughout the week. In college football, the media is not really allowed in the locker room at all. So just as one of the few guys who was here during the Derek Mason era and was also here for the Clark Lea era, just sort of how has that locker room changed? And just sort of, if you could just give us an insight as to what like a college football locker room is like, because as fans, we really don't know that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, Trevor. Well, first off, our locker room looks a lot different than it did when I first came in here. Our lockers are, metal and real lockers and not wood. But no, it's super unique because, as I mentioned earlier, you come from high school football where all your buddies are playing on the team and everybody's was raised in the same town and somewhat thinks the same way, and all of a sudden you're in a place of, as a kid from New Jersey, California, Michigan, Texas, all over the country, and 100 of you guys who all think 60,000 different ways got to come together for one common goal. And that's why football is the best team sport in the world. It's the truth. It's the hardest sport to win at. It's the hardest sport to win at because it takes so many guys to do it. And so, yeah, just kind of life inside a college football locker room. It depends on the year, but I mean, the time of year, but in season, it's guys are there early and we're in meetings and it's a lot of in and out. And then the best times are after practice because, people are relieved that, the hard hitting and sprinting and sweating of the day is kind of behind us and it's more to the mental side. So yeah, it's all about building relationships, camaraderie, chemistry, especially between, quarterback, receiver, tight end, those kind of guys where they're sharing the ball and those kind of things. That's uber important. And that's, going back to what Will said, I think, like, I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like in the future because all of that and the way I was raised or the way I knew a college football locker room to be is going to be completely different now because, you got Jimmy from, UCF who came in here and then Greg who transferred in from TCU or wherever it is. And all of a sudden you guys got to go out there and, are expected to perform at the highest level in fall camp for the opening game. it's just the formula to win is so different. It's so different than it used to be. But I think at the end of the day, it's about the players. It's about the players' ability, and then it's about the coaches making putting those players in the best position to win. And yeah, locker room's a fun place, and as Billy was saying, that's as I'm removed from that now, it's definitely something I'm gonna miss.
Yeah, you mentioned Bryce Young and kind of the college legend and kind of a folk hero that he became, sticking with the process at Alabama. I mean, that's what you did at Vanderbilt, for 5 years. You stayed the course, and you stayed on campus, and you trusted the process, and you you went through a couple head coaches with Coach Mason,
Yeah.
Clark Lea, a lot of few different tight end coaches, all kinds of different coaches at Vanderbilt. So I want to start there kind of with Coach Lea and that culture. And we'll get into a lot of this, of course, but initially, what was your first impression of Coach Lea and kind of the culture that he wanted to instill? And I guess how long did that take for you to warm up to him and kind of convince yourself, man, I want to play for this guy?
Yeah. Before I answer this, let me make sure I was not solidifying myself as a campus legend because I stick around for 5 years. Let's just set that out, right? I'm just making that clear.
Mr.
Hey,
Vanderbilt.
to some Vandy fans potentially.
Yeah, but no, my first impression of Coach Lea, he got the job, and then I got a random phone call from a 615 number. I won't forget that, on Christmas Eve of whatever year he was hired. I guess that was Christmas Eve of 2020 because his first year was 21. Is that right? And
That sounds right.
And yeah, so Christmas Eve of 2020, a phone rings from a 615 number, and so I let it go, because I thought it was somebody calling about my car's extended warranty or something. And they left voicemail, "Hey Gavin, this is Clark Lea. Give me a call." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So I called him right back, and we talked for maybe 20 minutes, and just he told me, he said, "Everything that you have previously known, I'll never forget this. He said, everything that you previously known about your Vanderbilt experience, I want you to throw it out the window. It's going to be different." And he was right. He was right. The way he came in from day one, I'll never forget. It was like, January 7th or 8th or whatever it was. We were in the stadium at 6 a.m. We were in all black, no Vandy logo, like Gildan shirt that you would wear, like the Brentwood Blaze stuff. And he set the standard, and since then it's just built over time. And he's brought in the staff to support him. He's brought in transfers who fit his mold. He's very picky about his transfers and who fit his mold, which I totally understand. He doesn't want to compromise the culture of the program. I totally understand that. And then he brings in young guys who not only are great ball players, but fit his mold as well. And then the next thing you know, you got redshirt freshmen who are stepping into leadership roles, and that did not used to happen previously. And so I think there was a lot to change. We went a lot of, as you guys know, I mean, you guys keep up with literally all the news of our program. We had a lot of people in and out of our program, a lot, especially when he inherited Coach Mason's roster. And I think over time, it's easy for someone to tell on day one or day two or even like day 10 or 30 for like, I'm all in. But now you're looking at, you're 2 years in, 3 years in, who's left and who also has come in, to support the brand and support the culture that we're trying to build. And so, yeah, that was, sorry for the long-winded answer, but my first impression was Christmas Eve. And then when I sat in his office and told him that I was going to pursue the NFL, he told me, looked me in the eye and said, I will always be your coach. And I know it's sounds like really simple, but like for some reason that hit me, and I believed it. And so, love Coach Lea, really believe in him. And so, yeah, I'm fired up for what the future holds of Vanderbilt football.
Well, I'm fired up now too after that, but
Sure.
you had the unique experience of, we've hit on it repeatedly leading up to every question, so I'm not going to do it again, but you went through the coaching changes. But another thing on this roster, it wasn't necessarily transfers out, but you went through 3 guys at the starting quarterback position. And as a tight end that was kind of put into a leadership role, at least from the outside, alongside Ben Bresnahan, what was that like being looked to as a leader from, not an offense towards the tight end position, but a position that you wouldn't typically look to for leadership within not just the offense, but a program? So what was that like, and how was that approached by Coach Lee?
Yeah. Hey, you guys are hitting with these questions. These are like legit. These are legit. I thought you guys were actually like, what's your favorite color? But this is legit. So I would say
we can do those two.
Yeah. All right. Cool. First off, I totally understand what you're saying. The quarterback position comes with this aura, right? It comes with you walk into the room, that's the quarterback. It comes with with a leadership expectation. It's just the truth. And I think that the three guys that I played for, at least under the Coach Lee era, with Ken, Mike, and AJ, all three of them have that. It just all three looks completely different. Kenny is super charismatic. Everybody's great friends with him. He works his tail off. Ken Seals works his tail off. You can just say that. And so, I believe Ken's still with the team, and if he gets an opportunity or some point he's in the game next year, I would be the biggest fan of number 8. He deserves it, and he's been in. As you guys know, his journey's been a roller coaster here.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike is the loudest person in the locker room, probably the funniest person in the locker room. Mike Wright won us some football games at Vanderbilt. He did. And I think like future looking wise, I think there was a mutual decision of where we were going with the program and what Mike wanted to do. And honestly, like, you can ask me, but I'm not really sure what that whole situation looked like. But like, Mike Wright won us games at Vanderbilt, and then you get to AJ, and AJ's just uber talented. I think I can't remember who I was talking to. It was a media member during the season, but there were so many times. A few and when he first got here in the last spring, but this most recent fall camp where he would make a play, and Ben and I, because we were always together, would look at each other like, holy cow, that is not normal. So he's a freak talent. I think he is a younger dude that has leadership qualities. He's still developing them and trying to figure out what he needs to do in order to lead an SEC team against an SEC schedule. But all the traits and the talent is there, and you guys saw it. I mean, that play at NIU, that was like the craziest thing I've ever seen. And the kid was like 18 years old, right? I mean, that was like Aaron Rodgers flicking the wrist and stuff. And so he can put it together, and AJ's got it. AJ's got it. That's probably the best way to put it.
We've said that a few times on here.
Yeah.
It's like we just didn't really know how to describe it.
That's it. I mean, you're totally right. You're totally right, Billy. It's like he's got it, and he's super supportive, positive reinforcement, which is a huge deal in Coach Lee's program, and AJ's got it. And so, if we can put the guys around him, we got Shep back, Quincy, same person, Jaden. We got the pieces there, and that's why I'm really fired up, is because now they get a whole entire off season of knowing what's going on, presumably who's the guy and what can we work on. So I'm fired up to see him rip it.
Yeah, we love to hear that. I was listening to Will's question, and our questions are sort of along the same lines when it comes to the tight end position. So I was hoping he wouldn't steal mine, and he didn't, thankfully.
Good.
But just whenever we look at the tight end position a little bit, I think we can all admit here that the tight end position is a really unique position in that you're sort of asked to do it all. Obviously, wide receivers, whenever there's a screen, they're expected to block. They're expected to block in when there's a run, so on and so forth. But for a tight end, you're expected to catch, run crisp routes, run block, pass block, all these sort of things. And whenever we look at just your career or just your season this past year, obviously caught a couple touchdowns. My personal favorite was with about 6 minutes left in the third quarter of the Hawaii game, Mike Wright takes off, and you absolutely escort a man out of bounds on that run.
Yeah.
And that's what a tight end is expected to do. You're expected to absolutely dominate the man across from you whenever it comes to blocking. And you're also expected to go up against these elite, fast, really big linebackers, safeties, so on and so forth. So just whenever it comes to the tight end position, how mentally difficult is it to sort of go out and be like, okay, I need to be great at run blocking, pass protection. I need to go out and I need to run this route. And I need to bring down a tough ball, because that's really unique to just the tight end, not just the tight end position, but particularly the tight end position.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question as well. I think that the tight end position is so unique and it's constantly evolving. And so, yeah, you're expected to do a lot of things. And I truly believe this, especially, it's easy to say now, 5 years removed, and a guy who played quarterback in high school. It's the hardest thing to do, to come into a college program, especially a college SEC program, and play as a freshman tight end, because there's so much that you have to cover all your bases. Not only just cover all your bases, but be elite at it at an elite SEC level. And so, I think, going back to what you said about that specific Hawaii game and stuff, we, as a tight end room at Vandy, like, we've made that a pillar of our thing is we want KDs, which is knockdowns, or, pushing people out of, taking them to the Gatorades, coolers on the sideline, or putting them on their back on the turf. And we want KDs, and we want TDs, touchdowns, obviously. So KDs and TDs is what we talk about in the Vanderbilt tight end room. But I remember it was cool. I think you guys will recall this when George Kittle and Travis Kelce brought all of those guys for tight end U to Nashville and worked out at Vandy. We were able to kind of pick some minds and see some stuff. And I'll never forget George Kittle he said, when I am blocking a defensive back, it's my job to make his day miserable. And I'll never forget that. So that's what I was thinking on that play, man. I was like, let me just bury this dude.
Also, Shepard was just annihilating the guy too.
Yeah,
it was at the same time. And then Mike's running down the sideline.
The guy you blocked wanted to come back into the stadium, and the guards at the front were like, "Hey, you ain't got a ticket. You can't come back in."
That's it.
I don't think we saw him the rest of the game.
I don't know. But honestly, and I'm glad you guys pointed out Shep too, because that was a season opening game. We're at Hawaii. I'm talking from an outside perspective, not necessarily what we felt like in the locker room, but people are wondering, okay, Vanderbilt football, what are we going to look like this year? It's year 2 under Coach Lea. To me, that play was you look at that play and you're like, that Vanderbilt football is changing. Because that play, like, between whether Mike taking off and being the playmaking ability of Mike, the 2 blocks on the edge, which don't go in the stat book, they don't. But guys giving 110% effort, like, that play is like, okay, like, we're going in the right direction. And I think, as there may not have been a more violent play the rest of the season, but you saw it in each game as well. And obviously we were playing, SEC competition and such, but you saw it. And that's why I believe in Coach Lea, because plays like that, whether it was Mike taking off or me putting the guy on the sideline or Shep decapitating the guy, like, that wasn't happening previously. And so that's why I'm fired up about all of it.
Yeah, Will, we talked about it. SEC speed. I mean, that's what I thought of. That play, and just strength too. I mean, you plowing the guy down the sideline, Shepard coming in. But Will, I know you got one, but I got a quick one here on the Hawaii game still. The video came out. I don't know if it was, I think it was SEC Network had a SEC featured type thing where, they showed your trip in Hawaii, and they showed, pregame clips in the locker room of Coach Lea. And I don't know if it was the pregame speech or at halftime. I couldn't believe what I was seeing from Coach Lea. I mean, that was as raw of an emotional, appearance from him I had ever seen, and they showed it. The cameras, microphones were there. And I know you guys have definitely seen that, but that was the first time I think fans got a good look at, and Coach Lee's not just this, kind of reserved, type of guy. He will get in your face and he'll motivate you. So do you look back at that Hawaii game and kind of, say to yourself, man, that might have been a little bit of a turning point for the program?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, first off, I think, and I hear this from everybody. I hear it from, my grandparents who watch every game. I hear it from aunts and uncles and stuff about, like, oh, why doesn't Coach Lee show emotion on the sideline? Like, why doesn't he do this and that? Like, that dude is emotional as can be. I mean, he is. I think he's just so laser focused. I think he's just so laser focused when he's on the sideline. But that dude, Coach, fires us up and says the right thing at the right time. And, I think what's huge, I really do think this is huge. I think this is underlying, is, he played here. He was in our pads, in our jerseys. Like, he totally understands what we're feeling at this given moment or that given moment, whatever it may be. And so, you guys were able to hear that. I hear that every day.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I think, going back to the just your question, that Hawaii trip was, a once in a lifetime experience. You get a group of, 100 guys who are, basically best friends because we spent all day together. 118 to 22-year-old kids get to go spend a week together in Hawaii for free and play football. Like,
Not too bad.
Sign me up for that. Like, and so we had a blast, man, and did all types of community service stuff, got to explore the island, which I really appreciate, Coach, being so flexible with us doing, because he easily could have had us, shut down the hotel 24/7. It was the perfect mix of, him understanding this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, but also, we're here, we got a job to do. And so, sure enough, we went out there and did it.
So we've hit you with some pretty tough questions. I mean,
they've been great though. This was awesome.
Yeah, like you said, this wasn't what's your favorite food, what's your favorite color. So maybe I'll ease it back a notch here. So I don't know if Vanderbilt fans know this. If they're listening to this podcast, they're probably pretty big fans, so they might. But correct me if I'm wrong. You played quarterback at Brentwood Academy. Pretty good. Won some state championships there. So I know that adjustment was probably tough. I know you were recruited in as a tight end and had previous playing experience, but were there, now that you're graduated, it'll be a different playbook, you're gone. Were there any plays ever drawn up to have you throwing some sort of pass or in some sort of package? Kind of like the wild Gavin there. Was that ever in the playbook?
I'm glad I'm done playing because yes, it was.
And we didn't see it.
And we didn't see it. And
I feel like we maybe saw it, but maybe not. Yeah.
The thing that sucks is there was, and it was with like 3 different coordinators too. So like everybody was like, whoever, all the guys that we've had come in throughout the years were like, at some point, whether it was,
this is the wild card. We've got an ace up our sleeve.
It was like, hey, let's come over here. Let's just throw for a second. And then after like a couple throws, they're like, oh, their face all light up because they get to go up to their office and draw up a play. But there were plenty in. There were a bunch of stuff. We just never got to them, which I hated. I was like, and it was funny because, of course you get, I get fired up for it because I'm like, what if I catch a touchdown and throw a touchdown? Like that'd be sick in the same game, right? And so, I would be like, telling my brother or somebody like, man, watch about passing touchdown that never gets called. I'm like, But
I was waiting on it your entire career, because I worked the quote unquote, I was security for the high school state championships, I believe, when you were up there.
Oh, really?
And once you committed to Vanderbilt, I was like, this will be a thing and I'll see it coming. And it just
that's
happened.
awesome.
So I'm glad I wasn't too off base thinking that there might be a play in the playbook there. So
yeah, no, you weren't at all. I hate we never got to him. I will say though, like there was always this thing in the back of my mind where I'm like, man, like if they reverse it to my 6'4", 240-pound self, like they probably know I'm not going to run like Jaden on the edge, so they may think something's up.
I remember I remember Cam Johnson had an opportunity,
Oh yeah.
and this was I don't think it was a touchdown. It was against Georgia at home.
Yep.
I think it was a few years ago, and Cam, I know, of course, you guys are tight. He had a
Mhm.
chance to, I think got called back though. He got called back. It was a good throw though, and
Yeah, it
Cam was a
was.
guy that I think had a good arm.
Yeah, Cam's always been able to sling it, and I know exactly what play you're talking about. It was the season opener
Yeah,
versus Georgia in 19 maybe.
I think so.
But
Yeah,
he got it. He threw it, but the problem was he like touched the stars. I mean, it looked like a punt. It was like,
yeah, because the receiver was wide open too.
yeah, he was wide open, but the guys were able to catch up to him because the ball was in the air for 10 seconds. Um, but uh, but no, Cam, he had his chance, man. I just wanted my chance. That's all I wanted.
Yeah, I didn't. That's I was asking because I didn't know if you were on the field at that time, or not. But I was
Yeah,
thinking Gavin played quarterback at BA. Maybe he could have given it a better chance there. But
I'm trying to tell
but
these
man,
guys. I'm trying to tell them.
you
That's
mentioned
fun.
AJ, Gavin, and you talked about his potential. Um, and I think a lot of Vandy fans look back at a guy like Jay Cutler and think of what he was able to do at Vanderbilt and kind of try to compare the two. But AJ, he has that sort of it factor that it's hard to pin down. It's hard to even describe it. What, like, for example, what we saw against Northern Illinois, uh, from when he got here on campus, you first met him to where he is now. I don't know how much you hang out with him now still, but
Yeah.
when he was kind of deep into the season and playing for you guys, how much did you see him grow, and what can Vandy fans look forward to at least next season with him at the helm?
Yeah. He's grown a lot. I mean, you got to think, you guys put yourself in his shoes of, you're supposed to be at your high school prom, but now you're with all these like grown men in these college practices when he enrolled early. So I think when he first got here, it was like a little bit of a shock for him, but I mean, totally to be expected. Um, but he's grown, and the best way of learning anything is through experience. And you can sit in a quarterback meeting room and write 1,000 plays what you want. Uh, the best way to learn is through experience. And so, he was able to get some experience under his belt, played well in a lot of games for us. Um, and honestly, I think the biggest thing about AJ is he doesn't really flinch at all. Um, he came in, I think his first appearance was that Wake Forest game. I may be wrong. Oh, I think he played in Hawaii.
Late in
Yeah,
Hawaii, yeah.
played in Hawaii, but came in and absolutely ripped it versus Wake Forest, and I think that's what earned him the start at NIU, and he picked up right where he left off. And so I think the biggest thing with him that I've seen is how the other guys have grown confidence in him.
Hmm.
Him and Shep are super tight. I think Shep trusts him. He trusts Shep. Jaden, they obviously came in together, so they've always been, close, and Q as well. And Quincy's a super dynamic player. I hate it because I vividly remember him at the end of the Hawaii game when it didn't even matter, like pulled up with a hamstring injury.
Hmm.
And he had a tough season because of that, and it was always kind of lingering. Quincy made plays in camp that I haven't seen from anybody since I've been a player at Vandy, and I played, with Keyshawn and Kalijah and Pink and all those guys too. And Q would make some plays that holy smokes. And so I think, you asked me what can Vandy fans look forward to. I think we have a really dynamic wide receiver room. I do. And I think we have a quarterback who is, as talented as maybe some people who have come before to wear the black and gold, but we got to go out there and win it. Got to go out there and win. Got to go out there and do it. And I think they can. That's why I'm excited for them to have, the reps over spring, into fall camp and all that. Obviously, just praying for health because that's such a factor in college football.
There's no doubt, no doubt, and he
Yeah,
had to battle. He had to battle through a lot last year, Trev.
Yeah.
he did. Yeah. Gavin, you were talking earlier about there were certain plays during the Hawaii game to where you could tell that it was a turning point for Vanderbilt. And two particular games I just want to bring up, in the Kentucky and in the Florida game. As fans, we obviously have a much different experience than you guys. I mean, you guys are on the sideline, on the field. I mean, it's your game. It's dependent on you. As a fan, there are certain plays that we see, and to us in the stands or on the TV, it feels like a turning point. So, like in the Florida game, whenever Wesley recovered the touchdown in the end zone, to us fans, we were like, "Oh my God!" Like I was there, I was like, "I think like this might happen." On the sideline in either one of those games, because those are obviously two massive games from this season, were there ever particular plays or even moments, whether it could be in the locker room or on the sideline with your position coach, to where you were like, "Hey, like we've got him, like we can do this"?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as throughout my career, I've seen so many different games, and I've been a part of so many different games. I mean, like, guys, you forget, like, I'm like so old. Like, I was there for that game at Notre Dame. I was on the sideline for that game at Notre Dame.
I was gonna say, you
I was in
mentioned
the
Keyshawn.
stands.
Yeah,
You mentioned
yeah,
I was in
Keyshawn
the
and
stands as
Jarrett.
well.
I was like,
yeah.
wait, you played with those guys. I totally
Dude, I'm
forgot.
telling you guys, I hopefully that this is all speaking for itself, Billy, why I didn't come back for the 6th year. But um but no, man, like I've seen so many and been a part of so many games that have just been roller coasters, emotional roller coasters. And I cannot, you know, obviously if I'm going through it, you guys are as well in the stands. But I would say and I'm glad you asked this, because this is something that we've talked about after it happened. But when it happened in person, it was unbelievable. And that's when we scored versus Kentucky, when Shep caught the touchdown pass versus Kentucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Levis and those guys get the ball back, and our defense goes out there. Really, really eerie situation that's similar to South Carolina in 2021 or 2020. And there was no doubt. There was no doubt that the defense was ending the game. And if you rewind a year at South Carolina, which may have been like one of like most like heartbreaking tough losses ever that I've ever been a part of, because what we thought at that time was that was our breakthrough moment, and sadly it just wasn't written for us that day. But a lot of those guys were out there on that 2-minute drill that when Carolina went all the way down the field, and a lot of those guys came right back on the field when it was Kentucky's turn, and they were like, not this time. And even the offense, I don't know if you guys have seen that video, but when the offense came out the field and defense ran on there, Mike was yanking everybody off the bench saying, let's go,
Yeah.
like we're all up. And if you go back and watch, there's a wide view that we get, as a team, like a super wide view of each play. And there's not one soul sitting on the bench during that time. It's the full force of Vanderbilt football, is toes as close as they can be before the ref gets mad to the field. There was no doubt we were winning that game. And so that, to answer your question, Trevor, was a moment for our program of, this is different. This is change, and it's happening right now.
Yeah,
and then go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And then going to Florida, as you said, I've always said this, and I totally believe this, that college football is all about momentum. It's all about momentum. And you can play a team at this point of the year and they're ranked 12th in the country, and then you can play that same team 6 weeks later and they've lost 4 in a row. And when they show up on that field, it's completely different. And so, I think us going into Florida, we had a little swagger about us. We had a little chip on our shoulder, and we just got after them, and got a little scary there at the end, no doubt. But yeah, I think there was a sequence in that Florida game where I scored. The
Great
defense,
cutback, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's exactly
great read.
It's exactly how we drew it up. No, we drew it up in the room. Yeah, they don't ask how. But I scored the defense, first down stop, second down stop, third down, Jalen Mahoney interception. Next offensive play was Ben's 30-yard touchdown. And that was like a boom boom punch where Florida was just stunned. And I mean, think about it, we had back-to-back offensive plays of touchdowns. It was my touchdown, pick, next play touchdown in like 90 seconds. And so that was just, I think something we always talk about, and talk is talk, but something we always talk about is like, we want Vanderbilt football to be the boxer that is leaning forward, never the one that's leaning backwards, leaning forward, throwing the punches. And I think that was a perfect analogy of you get the boom touchdown, and then they're like, okay, let's go answer, and then boom, Jalen Mahoney interception, and then boom, the knockout punch of Ben rumbling into the end zone, which if you go back and watch that play, I look like a little girl on Christmas morning, just going crazy.
You're on the sideline, right?
No, I was out there.
You're on the field.
That's one of my favorite celebrations was Ben Bresnahan's running off with this flex right here.
Yeah. And so
turn those defenders into his kids.
Yeah, dude. And that's why, is because I was actually, so we were, it was like a little fake run play left, and I was just like fake run blocking, and he's kind of slipped out the front side, and Mike hit him, but I couldn't see anything because literally I was like the last player, and there's 20 bodies in front of me, and so I just watched on the jumbotron. I'm standing on the field, watching on the jumbotron, and I saw he stuck the ball out and scored, and I literally jumped up and down. I was like kicking my feet together, and I think that was I don't want to call it like an arrival of Vanderbilt football, but it was just like, we're here and this is it now, and let's roll. And so that's what they need to be taking into 2023.
Yeah,
I will say,
go ahead. I was just going to make a little comment there that was just, I don't know about arrival, but it just felt like an absolute statement. Like that's exactly maybe not the arrival, but just an absolute statement to the rest of not just the SEC, but pretty much every college football fan. I mean, undeniably was just two respectable wins in back-to-back weeks in a tough situation that any team facing a situation sitting at 3-6 would. It's pretty easy at that point to fold it in. I mean, and this team certainly didn't.
Well, and I'll say this too, man. Like we practice our tails off, and that's because of coach, the expectations of the staff. I mean, we're in, we're 3-6 or whatever our record was in week 10. 80% of the country isn't even in shoulder pads anymore. We're in shoulder pads and we're going not live to the ground, but like we're hitting, and it's good on good, like one offense versus one defense, and that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in other schools. And so I think, there's a decision you have to make as a team is your success like a bell curve where you're here and you kind of hit your peak in the middle of the season and you drop off, or is it just constant up and up and up and up and up? And there's little dips in between, don't get me wrong. But I don't think we, at Vanderbilt, we don't have the margins to just coast and practice in week 10. We don't. And that's why coach demands the best, and I think that's contagious to the players and captains and all those guys that push the standard, because really at the end of the day, like, it is about the players. The coaches can say what they want, but the best programs are player-led programs. It's the truth. And so that's why I'm excited for we got a lot of guys leaving, captains leaving, myself, Elijah, Ben, Anthony. Like there's a lot of guys who had the C on their jersey who aren't on the team anymore. And so I'm super excited to see what does that look like next year, and that's. All of that is built right now, guys. It's built, and there's whether it's tomorrow morning, I don't know, maybe because I don't get messages anymore. That just made me sad. But you will be sleeping. It'll be 6 a.m. and it'll be 20 degrees, and they're doing tug of war across the Star V in First Bank Stadium. Like, this is where it's built. It's built right now, And I'm super excited to what the leadership of this upcoming team is going to look like, because that team will go as they go.
Yeah, I like what you said
It's
there, the player-led Trevor. I promise this is the last thing I'll say.
nah, dude,
Gavin,
you're all
please don't
good,
answer.
brother.
Got to get to Trevor.
Dude,
But
you're
the
good.
player-led, I mean, I think it's kind of rare, like how, I don't know the right word here, but how much Vanderbilt fans fell in love and supported these guys on a team that, went 5-7, didn't go to a bowl game. But I think Vanderbilt fans in general saw what you said. I mean, they saw the effort on the field. They saw a team giving it their all and laying it out on the field. And if a few things bounce a different direction, who knows? And so I think what you just said, the work definitely showed on the outside, even if we didn't actually see those, stairs running at 6 a.m. and tug of war in 20-degree weather. It definitely showed, and it was a different feeling from the fan base, I think, than 3-4 years ago. Even though the record, probably wasn't up to what the highest goal was, but I think the effort put out on the field was phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think too, the thing that is tough is you guys only see like 3 hours on Saturday, 4 hours on Saturday, right? Like, I mean, we're together for 30, 40 hours a week. And as you said, like, it felt different than it did 2, 3, 4 years ago. I was part of those teams too. And yeah, it felt different to me too. And I'm the guy who's in the locker room with these guys all the time. And so, the difference is, this is going back to, a question we asked a while back of like the locker room and stuff. Like, our locker room was unfazed, and man, we had some, like, there were some changes. Was it Mike? Was it AJ? Is this person healthy? Is he not healthy? Who are we playing this week? What's different about this week than last week? Like, stuff changes all the time in college football. That's why momentum's so important. But we never got off our course. We never got off the end goal in mind, and sadly we fell short. I mean, I would do anything to be on a bowl stage with those guys from last year. That was the vision. Was confetti falling and a bowl trophy. That was the vision that we set. And sadly we fell a little short. But the standard of Vanderbilt football, like we're in a bowl game. Like, no more of this packing it up before December. Like, no more of that. And I think there's the right people in the right places to make sure that happens. And you best believe I'll be right there in the front row. So,
sort of, it's me and Will are on the same wavelength. We're about to be asking the same thing, but this is just more of a statement than anything. But like you said, you guys are the ones who are up at 5-6 a.m. doing the work, and we only get to see 4 hours of it, so on and so forth. But one thing that we talked about all season that was not just super evident to us, but fans in general. It's funny that you brought up the South Carolina game. Obviously, that was a heartbreaking loss. But Billy, Will, and myself, we've all been fans all our lives. So we've seen a lot of heartbreaking Vanderbilt games. There was a point, and I know we brought up the Hawaii game a lot, but one thing that was super evident was particularly during the Hawaii game and the NIU game, the opening drive, Hawaii got the ball and just marched down the field.
yeah.
And me personally, I'm irrational, but I was like, oh my God, it's happening again. And then the Vanderbilt football team just kind of came out and dragged their nuts all over Hawaii, and it wasn't even a ball game. Same with NIU. It was really ugly. And then it was almost like a switch flip to where Vanderbilt took a punch, but then you guys really thought, oh, these guys aren't even in our league. And then you saw that in the Kentucky game and the Florida game, and even games that you came up short. I mean, I think the Mizzou game, there was a lot of fight left in the team. And so that's something that we talked about all season, that even though there wasn't a bowl, and I'm sure you guys obviously wanted to go to a bowl, but even to just us fans, just seeing like that progress to where you guys would take a punch in the mouth and then you would deliver 2 or 3 jabs right back.
Yeah.
I mean, that was something that we talked about all season. That was something that we honestly haven't seen in a long time, and that was super refreshing.
Yeah. Well, I think that in anything, but I think it's just it's in bold in football that your behavior is ahead of your results, right? And so uh our behavior and our approach to, whether we were down, I think we were down 10 to NIU in the third quarter, and they just had like a 60-yard fumble recovery, and like we're in the red zone up 10 and like 6 minutes left in the third. Like it wasn't looking hot. It wasn't looking great. Not gonna lie to you guys, it wasn't looking great, but
That's what made that game so wild.
yeah, like it's the fighting spirit of Vanderbilt football. It's our behavior ahead of our results. Like we're not going to change because of whatever's happening. And I remember specifically, they're on like the 30-yard line. They had to get backed up. We got to stop. They had to punt it because we pushed them out of field goal range. Shep had like a 25, 30-yard punt return, and then it was like 2 plays. Shep caught like a post or something, score. Defense went 3 and out. Mike Lusu had like a big sack. And like I think Kane Patterson was like pounding on his chest or something, and then kick it back to Will. We go down and score again, and like here we come, like here we go, and it's what we talk about, it's what we practice in situational stuff and in practice and throughout fall camp, and dude, great crazy stuff happens in college football, man. Like crazy stuff happens in college football, and Vanderbilt football is surely never out of the fight, and that's what's different. That's what's different now is because like and what you just said, Trevor, of you didn't exactly say this, but the term "here we go again," like that's what you're thinking, right? And like that is so far like crunched up into a ball and thrown out of our locker room. It's so far gone, so far gone. And that was not the case in previous years. And so, although, people maybe feel that way in the stands and whatnot, and like I cannot, let me just say this too, like, cannot say how appreciative I am for, you 3 guys and everybody else a part of, Vanderbilt athletics, supporters of Vanderbilt athletics and football and everything. Because, as a fan, and I'm just thinking about you guys as fans, it hasn't been the easiest route. But it's a different approach. It's a different approach. And I think go ahead.
That's what makes the good moments so good.
Dude,
I mean,
100%.
There's nothing better than being a Vanderbilt fan and cresting over the mountain when truly you have watched the boulder pushed up from the very bottom. There is nothing even comparable. Georgia fans, they can bark their heads off and they won't even know 10%. The joy of watching that Vanderbilt team beat Tennessee in 2016. They won't know it.
But let's make it clear, like that's the future of this program. It is. And so, that needs to be something, as I said, that term and same old Vandy, that is so far gone out of our locker
Louder
room.
for the people in the back.
He just stole it. He stole what I was going to say. The same old Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it's so far gone and out of our locker room and out of our building, and it doesn't even exist in people who are a part of Vanderbilt football anymore. And so that's what I'm trying to illustrate to you guys about how the behavior is ahead of our results. Our behavior is there, man. And the results will come. The results will come through what the guys are doing right now. The results will come through what they do in spring ball and in the fall camp. And it won't look perfect in spring. It won't look perfect week 1 of fall camp. It may not look perfect week 1 against Hawaii. It may not. But like, if the behavior is there, then you can build on it. Because if you're just a solid team with talent, like how many times, like guys, you've seen teams across the country who are talented and have 40 plus players from the transfer portal with no foundation. They hit some adversity, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, they lose however many games straight. Like that, like it happens to teams all across the country. And I'm not saying that there's some other places where we can improve in the portal. Absolutely, like I'm sure that Barton and his crew are all over that, and they're making the best decisions for whatever it is for us moving forward. But like I think that the way our program is built is to make sure that foundation is uber strong, and then whoever comes on it, instead of like us kind of adjusting to him is just brought right into it, and we're stronger because of it.
Man, listening to you analyze these games, he'd be perfect for maybe down the road, Gavin, but kind of a football analyst, kind of a
Dude,
guy that
maybe,
we
man, that'd be cool.
I mean,
There we go.
a guy.
Those guys have the best job in the world. Could you guys imagine like someone coming up to you and being like, "Hey, you want me to pay you like a couple $1 million to go watch Monday Night Football games like in person every week this year?" Yeah, that'd be great.
I mean, we're recording this podcast and losing money doing it, and we're on episode 201. So I think
201. You guys are on episode 201.
201.
Boys,
right.
It's an honor to be 201.
Consistency. Yeah, you're the first past the crest of 200 episodes. I didn't think we'd get there, Billy, but here we are.
So wait, so then if it's 201, like what? Do you guys do one every week, or how does it work?
Yeah. So during football season, we did. We would do 2 a week. So we do a preview and a recap. But now that we're in basketball and we're not seeing as much success, we're doing about 1 a week. And then baseball, probably 1 or 2 a week, depending on what happens. It's really kind of reacting to news and different situations. But speaking of basketball, I was going to ask you about that. I know, Will, you wanted to get in there, but you tweeted about it. You tweeted about the Arkansas win over the weekend.
I'm tuned into the boys for sure. I'm tuned into the boys.
About Liam Robbins' performance. Of course, it's just a brutal blow to the team that he's out. We brought up the sort of the injury curse that has happened. Really, your past 5 years, you've been a football player. I mean, it seems like the best player on every basketball team gets hurt somehow. So, but overall with this basketball team, what are you looking forward to down the stretch, and kind of see if Stack and the boys can kind of get it rolling here down the stretch?
Yeah, well, I promise I'll answer that. Let's rewind. Yeah, they've been hit with some tough injury luck, and one very near and dear to my heart with Darius. Like that is,
man, that's the worst of them all.
Yeah, no, it is, and I'm gonna say this, and I feel comfortable saying this to you guys, and because like I know, you guys have a lot of people who love Vanderbilt athletics and love Vanderbilt basketball who listen to your podcast. Darius Garland loves Vanderbilt, and he still loves Vanderbilt, and I think there's a little bit of a negative connotation because something happened to him that he has absolutely zero control over. And he was at a fork in the road where somebody was standing there saying, at this side is all your dreams and however many millions of dollars. And on this side is a college dorm room for you to go do it again. And Darius Garland loves Vanderbilt. He still does. He trains at Vanderbilt. This summer, he literally brought Donovan Mitchell, Ricky Rubio, all those guys to Nashville, trained at Vanderbilt. And so, for all the negative speak that there is around him, Darius, I literally just saw him in Denver when they played the Nuggets. I was out in Denver like 2 weeks ago, and he was wearing a Vanderbilt shirt underneath his hoodie, and claims Vanderbilt every time he's announced in the NBA from Vanderbilt University, and he loves it. And so I just really wanted to say that because I feel like that's some stuff that I see sometimes, and it hurts me. And if it hurts me, I know that like it gets to him a little bit because he loves. I mean, he made a huge decision, really like a program changing decision. Sadly, it just didn't really work out at all. And
there's been zero talk negative about Garland on this podcast between me and Billy and Trevor. I mean, that's a very understandable decision, and I was there when it happened, and trust me, I felt the air completely go out of Memorial Gym that day.
And then so I wanted to say that, but then also you had him, and then
Simi Shatu later, Neesmith.
Simi. Yeah, didn't Aaron get hurt for like majority of the year?
Yep.
And then now Liam, just like what the heck is going on, right? Like, and no, but I think for this year's squad, like, I think Liam is such a catalyst. He's such a catalyst for the team. Of like, there's literally nobody else in the conference, maybe nobody else in the country like him. I mean, he looks way leaner, way more in shape than he has in the past, and I think it's because he kind of had an off season where he wasn't injured. But I actually got a chance to know him, and we actually talked about starting a podcast together, which would be pretty cool. But I was like, what should we call it? And I was like, what about like something taller? I'm like, you're onto something there. You're onto something. But no, he's a great dude, and he's a catalyst for the team because I think what he does is so unique. I mean, like, nothing fires me up more than like a kid putting up a shot and he's just like, nah, and just blocks it. And so yeah, don't get me wrong, like that it hurts. It hurts for sure. And they've just been hit with the injury bug worse than any team I've ever seen in my life. And so, but no, they got to go on. They got to. I think if Studi gets back on his groove with the threes, I think my man Lee Dort the other night. Oh yeah. I mean that game. The game changed when he came in and midway through the first one. I think when the Doors took the lead.
He had a nice little reverse layup too.
Yeah. And so I think they got. I think what sucks is when you have injuries, roles change in basketball a little bit. And I played basketball for a long time. But like when you have injuries throughout the season, the roles change for a little bit. And so I think it takes a little longer for the team to figure it out. Because if you got the same guys and you're rolling from game 1 to game 30 or whatever it is, by game 12, you've got it figured out and you guys are rolling. When you guys get hurt, you kind of take some steps back. And is it one guy that steps up? Is it a committee that tries to replace him? It's tough. And I think that Arkansas win was huge for Vanderbilt athletics and Memorial Gym. There was some juice in there. That felt good.
Oh yeah.
And there was some juice in there against Bam the other night. It's the truth. Like
students are showing up.
Students showed up. Students are showing up. Students are into it. And I kind of like you said at the very beginning, Billy. I grew up in Nashville. I cheered for Vanderbilt. I wasn't like running around like Vanderbilt fan in everyone's faces, but like I was there. Shane Foster senior night versus Mississippi State. I was there when the Doors beat Bruce Pearl and the Vols when they were ranked number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen that gym be what it can be. And there's been snippets, this years previous, where I'm like, ooh, is that magic back to what it is? Like, is that magic? Is it on its way back? Because when it's there, I mean, there's nothing like it in college basketball. It's such a cool venue. It's such a cool venue. I mean, you guys saw what Portnoy said the other night, like that, like
that was crazy.
Like, yeah, I'm like, why the heck is this guy at the game? But anyway,
I was there. I tried to find him, but I think he left. He was there for like 10 minutes and then left.
Yeah, but like, but no, they'll get it going one way or another, and no matter what, like, I mean, I'm not going anywhere. Nashville will always be home base for me. So you guys will catch me at those games for sure.
And guys, it's really rare. It's really rare to, we're all diehards here. The way we talk about Vanderbilt and kind of how much we keep up. But a guy from Nashville, of course, went to high school in Brentwood.
Yeah.
Just it doesn't happen. It's almost like it doesn't happen anymore where a kid grows up in Nashville and kind of Vanderbilt's there and they become a diehard. So it feels like you Cam Johnson and Darius, you guys committing to Vanderbilt all together, and Darius still claiming Vanderbilt. Of course, Cam loved his time at Vanderbilt. It just feels so rare, guys, that there are people like Gavin who, they're from Nashville. They're not Tennessee fans. They're not Alabama fans. They're not, they grow up a Vandy fan, and Gavin ends up playing at Vandy. So, I think there needs to be more Gavin Schoenwalds in the world of Vanderbilt athletics and Vanderbilt fandom, because we know you're going to be keeping up with it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, man, and yeah, I was with Cam today, and like I feel like every time I see him, he's like wearing a Vandy shirt or Vandy shorts or something, and I'm like, man, you've been to like 2 different schools now, like, don't you have gear from other places too? And he's like, like Vandy's still home, and so he's had a journey himself, but just like Darius, I think. And you guys know this too, man. I think Vanderbilt is such a unique and special place that, like, when you experience it, you're like, dang, that's different. It's different, and I think that people feel that way in the stands too. Like, it's different, and it kind of captures your heart a little bit. And for me, a lot of it, because I've been here for 5 years, and grew up in Nashville, and yeah, dude, it's been a journey, but like all of my playing days at Vandy are over. I'll never stop wearing the black and gold and being a supporter of what we do in our university and whatnot. And so yeah, man.
Trevor calls it euphoric. He calls the feeling of watching Vanderbilt succeed euphoric. It's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It's like it's just dopamine overload. Like whenever you guys beat Kentucky, we did a Twitter Spaces afterwards, and I threatened that I was going to call my doctor. I threatened I was going to call my doctor and tell him I'm throwing away my antidepressants because I didn't need them anymore. And I was just it was electric.
Dude,
Watching
will
cry,
break your heart.
Cry.
It will break your heart in ways that are totally unique.
Well,
and it will also
yeah.
give you rewards in ways that are totally unique as well.
And that's the beautiful thing about sports, man. The beautiful thing about sport, because if it was always success, if it was like, you know,
it'd be boring.
If you were, you know, just winning all, like I'm trying to think of like the Patriots, when the Patriots had their little you know, thing with Brady, you know, they win the fourth one and they feel good, you know, and stuff. But like, imagine, like I'm trying to figure out, like when someone won the Super Bowl recently, it was the first time in forever. Like that probably felt way more euphoric, Trevor, than it did for you know, the Pats.
I'll say it's like I'm a Boston Celtics fan, and so I saw a championship. Granted, you know, I was younger, but it was 2008. Yeah. I saw that championship. There's something different when Vanderbilt baseball won the national championship in 2014 and when the Celtics won it in 2008. There was something inside of me that was just a different level of emotion. And I know fans feel it, and fans of other teams like Alabama and Georgia, LSU, they'll deny it, but everyone knows this. They're Kentucky basketball. I mean, well, they haven't had a great run recently, so maybe they might be a little more euphoric, but I mean, there's a different level, but then there's also the depths of hell that you go through if you really are a diehard fan and are a glutton for punishment. And Trevor and Billy and Gavin, as you continue to follow, not being as associated with the program, I'm sure you'll begin to experience a little more of that.
Well, I also think, you know what, like you guys keep saying the word diehard, like you're not a diehard if you're not there during the tough times. You're just a bandwagon. And so, like, you know, that's what, like I said, it's the glorious sports. It's the beautiful thing, especially about football. It's the greatest team sport in the world. It is. And I'm serious. Let's just hope there's definitely more hills than valleys in the future, which I believe. I really do. I really do. I believe that for football. I believe that for our whole athletics department. I do. I mean, seriously, guys, like in my time at Vanderbilt, I was thinking about this the other day. My time at Vanderbilt, which is 5 years. I got there in fall of 2018. I've had 3 different chancellors, 3 different athletic directors, 4 different offensive coordinators, 4 different position coaches, and so like I've gotten a taste of a lot.
That's wild.
And yeah, it's wild. I've gotten a taste of a lot, but like what we got going now, it's the best I've ever felt about it. It's the best I've ever felt about it. And I've got, like I said, I've got a taste of a little bit of everything. And the way we're going now with Dr. Lee and Coach Lee, like we're on it, man. And by the time all these facilities are done, I mean, it'll be the best in the country. Like all the renderings for it are beautiful and state of the art. And I mean, that stuff is so important because you look across the country and the most successful programs, it's the truth. I mean, people don't want to say it, it's the truth, have the best facilities. You know, you bring in a 16-year-old kid who thinks he's the best kid in the world, you know, best player in the world, and he wants to work out in the best facilities. And so now that Vanderbilt is going to be able to provide that, and you know, when a kid goes to Georgia or Alabama, or in basketball, a kid goes to Kentucky or North Carolina, and he shows up at Vanderbilt, there's not a drop off, and at least in his tour, and that is a huge deal. It's a huge deal. And so yeah, that's definitely something that I'm looking forward to. I'm I'm excited to see like when it's all done. Like I think that Just Neely is now like a walking type thing. So that'll be cool if that turns into like a fanfare type thing or something. I don't know. But it'll be cool. I'm fired up for it.
There's just so much potential. There's so much potential there with where it's located, and it just feels like Vanderbilt just hasn't capitalized on it. Now, finally, like you said, the pieces are stacking in place.
And I think we'll like once those pieces get stacked into place, like we'll start to see it. Like we'll really start to see it with like small wins. Like you'll get a recruit of like Darius or Simi or Aaron caliber, and you're like, oh, like that wasn't something that we kind of got normally in the past. And then like 6 months later or something, you're going to get another, like it's going to be small things. And then all of a sudden we're going to look up and I don't want to put a date on it, but you're going to look up and however many years after it's done, you're going to be like, we're one of the best athletic departments in the SEC. And it'll happen gradually. Trust me, I wish I could just be like, what happened right now.
I know.
Right?
I was thinking the other day, I wish I could just fast forward 5 years, but come back to the present time and tell everybody.
Building a mountain with layers of paint. That's what it's going to be and what it feels like.
Yeah. No, dude, I totally feel you guys. But like, I mean, one thing that I've come to like grow like an unbelievable appreciation of in my time at Vanderbilt, with all my experiences, as I just announced to you guys, is just like enjoying the journey and like seeing like where you were and then where you are now, and then really appreciating everything in between. It's kind of like all you guys were saying, all of y'all, about like why it just hits different. Like, that's why it just hits different when we get a huge road at top 25 road win in the snow against Kentucky. Like that felt freaking awesome. And it felt even better because I was thinking about all the dog days that we were in, in the past. And so it wouldn't mean as much. It's what you said about the Celtics, man. It wouldn't mean as much if I was just like, yeah. And it sucks, but like, appreciating the journey and appreciating, everything that happens from the worst, from literally the lowest of lows and everything in between that adds up to, this unbelievable euphoric Trevor experience. That's what makes it, man. That's what makes it.
Man, well, you made this podcast. I mean, this is a tier one interview, guys. One of the better ones we've ever done. And, I think fans will really appreciate, hearing this type of emotion and kind of memories on the season and the fact that you'll still be tuned in and loving Vandy, wearing the black and gold. So
yeah,
Gavin, I really appreciate it, man. This won't be the last time you come on. We'll have you on again, especially, maybe closer to football season. So I really appreciate it, man. And of course, good luck with your training and everything, and stay at it, man.
Yeah, boys. Well, no, let's definitely make sure this isn't the last time, because it's not like, like I said, I'm not going anywhere. So like,
exactly.
All you gotta do, just Billy, I think you sent me your number in the DM a while back. I'll text you so we don't have to stop sliding into DMs. But no, I'd love to. And as I said earlier, man, I as much as I like, during the season, like don't look at try not to look at the media stuff. Like you guys are always there and supporting us, and I want you to know that as a player, I really, really appreciate that. And what you do for our guys in our school, because there's a lot of and SEC football is king, and every single school has their flagship podcast or media outlet, and to see it run by younger dudes like you guys, but I mean, cream of the crop, best of the best, like it's awesome. So I just want to let you guys know that I really appreciate that, and there's other student athletes in football, but also basketball and other sports that really appreciate y'all.
Our heads are way too big right now.
That's from Mr.
I'm
Vanderbilt
serious.
himself.
I swear. I'm serious. I'm so serious, boys.
Well, that's why we wanted to get you on, and we still got a lot more to talk about. We could probably go 3 or 4, 5 more hours with this, but we'll let you get some rest and keep training, man. So I really appreciate it, Gav.
Yeah, fellas. All right. Well, I'll be seeing y'all soon. Don't be strangers now.
No, we won't. See you, Gav.
Thanks, Gavin.
All right, boys.
No, thank you, Gavin.